Hello ninth class, welcome to English Kaksha again. Today we will read and enjoy a traditional poem that is The Legend of the Northland and is beautifully composed by Fabi Carey. In this we will learn about a legend of a lady who was cursed by Saint Peter for her selfishness and greed. Why she was cursed and how she was cursed we will see in this poem. Watch the video very carefully because line to line explanation is given to you, and after that literary devices are also explained. Please like and share my video. If you have not subscribed the channel, don't forget to subscribe it. Legend of the Northland is a traditional poem that is written by Fabi Carey. So let's see what kind of poet is Fabi Carey. Fabi Carey was a well-known American poetess in the middle of the 19th century. She was the younger sister of poet Alice Carey. Poems and parodies, poems of faith, and hope and love are her selected literary work. Now we will see what kind of poem it is. This is a traditional poem, as I told you in the beginning, which is composed in the form of a ballad. Ballad means when a poem is written in the form of a song, but it is telling us about a story. That is called ballad. It narrates the legend how Saint Peter had once cursed an old lady for being mean and stingy. Legend means a story. In this poem, it is a story that is telling us how Saint Peter had once cursed an old lady for being mean and stingy. So let's start the poem. Away and away Northland, where the hours of the day are few and the nights are so long in winter that they cannot sleep them through. Away and away means at a very far distance in the Northland, where the hours of the day are very few and the nights are so long in winter. Winter, it means we are talking about the winter season here, that they cannot sleep. They means people of the Northland. Fine. So now see what is given in these lines. In these lines, the poet narrates the legend of an old lady who lived at a far off place which is called Northland. He says that Northland is far, far away, close to the North Pole. Here the nights are very cold and long, that the people cannot sleep through them. Right? Now we will see stanza 2. Where they harness and swift reindeer to the sledges when it snows, and the children look like bear's cubs in their funny, furry clothes. Now what is given here? First we will see what does harness mean. Harness means to fasten, bandhna ya to strap up, right? Sledge, sledge means to cart on ice. किसी गाड़ी को चलाना, that is called sledge. Cub, baby of a lion or a bear, that is called cub. And furry, furry means covered with fur. Fine. So let's see what is given in these lines. In these lines, the poet says that Northland is covered with snow. So the people of Northland use sledges. Here it is given sledges. They use sledges to drive or to go from one place to another, which are driven by fast reindeers. Fine. Children wear heavy woolen clothes made of fur. And in their funny fur dresses, they look like bear cubs. Okay. Now see stanza 3. They tell me a curious story. I don't believe it is true. This means it is. And yet you may learn a lesson if I tell the tale to you. This word is archaic word. Right? Now see what is given in these lines. Here the poet says that people of Northland narrate a strange tale to their children. A strange story to their children who seem to be very curious to listen. Children are always very curious to listen that story. And the story is quite famous and strange, which has passed through generations in Scotland. Here the poet shows her hope that strange tale can convey an important lesson of life if the poet will tell the story to us, means to the readers. Right? Now see, stanza 4. Once when the good Saint Peter lived in the world below and walked about it, preaching, just as he did. You know. Here in these lines, the poet narrates the story and starts it with the introduction of good Saint Peter. Who was good Saint Peter? An apostle of or disciple of Jesus Christ. जिसे आप भगवान का दूत कहते हो ना, that is called apostle of God. Now here he says that once he came down from heaven, walked about it, he came down from heaven to the world of human beings, and it is a belief that Saint Peter came in this world to spread the message of God. Now stanza 5, he came to the door of a cottage in travelling round the earth, where a little woman was making cakes and baking them on the hearth. Now we will see what is given in these lines. Here the poet says that when Saint Peter was on his usual round, he searched for the areas for preaching, and he reached to a cottage where a little woman was making cakes and baking them in the fireplace. Hearth means fireplace, जिसे आप भट्ठी बोलते हो, right? She was baking cake in that fireplace. Stanza 6, and being faint with fasting, for the day was almost done, he asked her from her store of cakes to give him a single one. Saint Peter was feeling very tired and was feeling almost faint. Why? Because he didn't eat a morsel for a long time. He didn't eat a single piece of food for a long time. So he asked the woman to give him a single cake out of many she had in her store. Next, stanza 7. So she made a very little cake, but as it baking lay, she looked at it, and though it seemed too large to give away. What is given in these lines? When Saint Peter requested her to give him a cake, she made a very small cake for him. But she was very stingy and selfish lady. That's why she looked at it, and it was seeming her a very large cake to give away to Saint, or at free of cost. That's why she was not ready to give that piece to Saint Peter. Therefore she needed another and still a smaller one, but it looked, when she turned it over, as large as the first had done. Therefore means after thinking that she was not able to give that piece to Saint Peter because it was too large, she needed another, and this piece was still smaller. But when she baked it and looked at it over, it was seeming as large as the first one. That's why she didn't give that piece also to Saint Peter. Then she took a tiny scrap of dough and rolled it flat and baked it thin as a wafer, but she could not part with that. After that, she took a tiny scrap of dough, tiny means small piece of dough, and she started rolling and tried to flat it like a thin wafer to make a cake out of it. But after baking that cake, she was not having the heart to give that piece to Saint Peter. For she said, my cakes are too small. When I eat of them myself, are yet too large to give away. So she put them on the shelf. Not to give that piece to Saint Peter, what she said? She said, my cakes are too small when I eat of them myself. Here she told Saint Peter that her cakes felt too small when she ate them herself, but when she had to give them away to someone, they appeared too large. Right? So that's why she put them on the shelf and didn't give a piece to Saint Peter. In these lines, we actually come to know that she was absolutely devoid of satisfaction and kindness. Then good Saint Peter grew angry, for he was hungry and faint, and surely such a woman was enough to provoke a saint. What is given in these lines? In these lines, the poet says that the uncharitable and greedy behavior made the saint angry. As Saint Peter was feeling hungry and weak, his temper provoked at the selfish behavior of women. And he said, what he said? You are far too selfish to dwell in a human form to have faith and shelter, and fire to keep you warm. He told the woman that she was too greedy or selfish to live as a human being and to enjoy the comforts of food, shelter, and a fire to keep herself warm. Even he told her that she had not developed human emotions like selfless love and kindness. Now you shall build as the birds do, and shall get your scanty food by boring and boring and boring all day in the hard, dry food. After then, the angry saint Peter cursed the woman and said, henceforth she would build her nest like the birds did, and she would no longer enjoy the human life and its comfort. Right? Now, he said she would have to work extremely hard and have to live in a forest like a woodpecker. Because woodpecker always try to dig into the trees to get their food. That's why he cursed her to turn into a woodpecker. And he said that she would live in a forest like a woodpecker, where she would have to keep digging holes. Here it is given boring and boring. Means keep digging holes in the hard and dry trunks of the tree in search of her food. Stanza 14. Then up she went through the chimney, never speaking a word, and out of the top flew a woodpecker, for she was changed to a bird. What is given in these lines? Then she went towards the chimney without speaking a single word, and the curse of Saint had deprived of her human form, and she lacked human values like kindness and charity, and she was changed into a bird. Which bird? Woodpecker. She had a scarlet cap on her head, and that was left the same, but all the rest of the clothes were burned black as a coal in the flame. When she was a woman, she used to wear a red cap on her head, but now she was turned into a woodpecker. As per the curse of the saint, she was turned into a woodpecker, and her cap remained same on her head as its plume. Right? All her clothes were burned into fire. Here it is given, but all the rest of her clothes were burnt. All her clothes were burned into fire, and she turned as black as coal. Right? Now, what is given in this stanza 16? And every country schoolboy has seen her in the wood, where she lives in the tree till this very day, boring and boring for food. What is given in these lines? According to the legend, she has been seen in the wood by every country schoolboy, means every young school going boy. Till that day, here it is given till this very day, till that day she lives in the forest, and she has to bore, means she has to dig the tree's trunk with extreme hard work to get her food. So, we can say that the poem gives us the message that we should have positive qualities like love, affection, sympathy, kindness, and sense of sharing. So, this is from your poem. Now, we will see what kind of literary devices are used in this poem. First is simile. Thin as a wafer, right? Here simile is used. As black as a coal. Here also we find simile. Which rhyming scheme is used? ABCB is used in the whole poem. Next device is alliteration. In their funny, furry clothes, FF is repeated here. Sound of F or word and alphabet F is repeated. If I tell the tale to you, TT is given here. Then she took up a tiny scrap. T and tiny, took and tiny. TT is repeated. My cakes that seems too small. SS is given here, right? So this is use of alliteration. Next is repetition. Away, away is repeated, and rolled. Next is boring, boring and boring, right? So in this way, repetition is also used in this poem. So this is from the literary devices that we have learned from this poem. I think each and everything is clear to you. Thank you.